Welcome to the very first Gone Girl live stream. We might run into technical difficulties because I don't really know what I'm doing right now, but we will go for it. I'm here with Noodles.
Hi.
Hey, Noodles. So
Hi.
we figured we would do our Morocco recap through the live stream, and we're a few days early, so there'll be no video on Tuesday, but we're going to run through everything right now, hopefully in a concise way, to cover everything that we loved about Morocco, everything that we would do if we went back, what we wouldn't do, all that stuff. Yeah, so here we go. Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit about what we learned from the Argan oil factories that we visited?
Yes, so we didn't do too much research on the argan oil co-ops, I think they're called, before we went because we weren't really planning on visiting any. But we visited a couple, kind of off the fly. And afterward, we did some research and found out that the intentions with these co-ops are actually good. They're supposed to be women owned, like women are supposed to be, each person working there is supposed to be part owner of the co-op, so they benefit from the profits. Um, but it turns out there's for a lot of them, there's actually a man behind the scenes, like running things and taking most of the profits from the women. So the ones that we visited, it's hard to tell what was, how, if it was being run the way it was actually supposed to, or, if there was a man behind the scenes sort of like, telling everybody what to do and taking their money, even though they're doing all the work. But the products we have, the ones that I've used so far, they're really good quality, and I'm happy with what I've purchased. It's just I'm not sure, the ethics behind it.
Yeah, I think we try really hard to be responsible travelers, especially you and I. And so that was one thing I felt like we failed a little bit on because we weren't prepared for it, especially the tours we did. They just kind of shuffled us into these argan oil areas and we really didn't have a choice. And then I think we both felt kind of weird about it in certain situations. So we knew something was a little off, but it wasn't until we got home that we were able to research that. And I'm pretty sure that the places we went to were a little sketchy. It just, something about them didn't feel great. So next time we'll be better about it, I guess. The other thing that we did was get henna tattoos, and we actually did a lot of research beforehand about that. We wanted to make sure, first of all, that it wasn't cultural appropriation, which it is not, because there's no one nationality that can take claim to henna tattoos. It comes from all over the world. So we were comfortable doing that. But then we also found out that there's a lot of fake henna in the Gemalefna square. So they use inks that aren't the real henna inks, I guess. Do you remember what the specifics were on that?
I don't. I just know that, everyone who's from Morocco that we talked about getting henna with are like, just make sure not to get it in the square. Go to a shop in one of the surrounding areas because there's a lot of fake henna in the square and it's really bad for your skin.
Right. And it was also more expensive in Gemalefna, I think, than where we ended up going. The Henna Art Cafe is really awesome because it's a nonprofit and they really help the women out that are working there. They're able to make a lot of profit off of the henna they do and the henna artwork that we talk about in our videos. So they design like these little keychains with henna ink on it during the off season. So they're able to make some extra cash through that. We felt really good about going there and definitely recommend doing that if you're in Marrakesh. That was really cool. And it was a highlight of the trip, but I think we were both a little bit disappointed in how long the henna lasted. Mine was only on my hands for about a week. How long did yours last, Needles?
It was longer than a week, but I think less than 2 weeks. It definitely started to fade before a week. But you know, I mean, it's not like it was super expensive, so I couldn't have been like too upset about it because it lasted long enough considering we paid what, like $10 in US dollars for it.
Yeah, and it was just a fun experience just going to get it done. And I think I would choose a area of my body that I didn't need to use because the struggle was real going through the Medina with the wet henna on and then just trying to not touch anything for the rest of the night. One thing that we didn't get to show in the video was the henna results. that night we ended up having to take a credit card and just really roughly scratch off the dried henna paint. It was kind of painful and it was a big mess. So be prepared for that if you're gonna go get henna. The other thing we wanted to touch on was just the street harassment in the Medina that we witnessed, especially as two women, just going through on our own. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Natalie?
Sure. So this was actually my second time visiting Morocco. My first time I went, I was absolutely by myself. And so I did a lot of research beforehand, and everything I read, you know, it was like women going by yourself, prepare to get harassed. It's going to be terrible. Like, it's just awful. So I was prepared for the worst. But when I got there, it wasn't as bad as I psyched myself up to be. And I noticed that, you know, for I made sure to cover up to be respectful for the culture. So I wore loose fitting pants. I made sure to wear a scarf to cover, you know, ladies as much as I could. Men still commented on it, but I never felt unsafe. So I feel like a lot of the testimonies I read where women were getting like harassed to the point they felt uncomfortable, they may not have taken as many precautions with their clothing as I did. And the second time when I visited with the Gone Girl, I guess I didn't do a good job of preparing her for the harassment. I was like, it's no big deal. It'll be fine. It was not. So
a lot of it had to do with just the area we were in too. So it was like the first day was just very stressful for me. But then after we kind of prepared ourselves more for it, and I realized that it's just specifically we're in a tourist area, so there's more poverty and more opportunity for people that live there to get money from tourists. So it's not a representation of everyone. Once we realized that and just kind of were prepared to put our resting bitch face on and just kind of braced ourselves for the worst, and mostly just felt more confident with the map in our hand walking through the Medina. I think that's when it really clicked, and we were okay after that day. It was just the first day that was just scary, and I was unprepared, and I just didn't expect to have to deal with any of that.
Could have been. We had been traveling. We didn't sleep at all the night before. I think we were just like tired and overwhelmed, and it wasn't good to start walking around the Medina by ourselves, you know, and it was late afternoon, so the sun was about to set, and we were hungry, and we just
hadn't eaten in like 24 hours, so there was definitely a little bit of hangriness going on in that situation.
For sure, we just weren't in the right mindset to start navigating the Medina on our own.
Which, speaking of food, as a vegetarian, it was super easy. I was really surprised. There's vegetarian food all over Marrakesh. I got to eat tagine like every day. I was a little bit sick of it by the end of it, but it was great. I didn't have to worry about really looking up restaurants beforehand because every place has vegetarian items on the menu. So thank you for that. I was very happy about that. And I think the highlight food-wise for me was the mint tea. We just could not get enough of that stuff. We became really good tea pourers by the end. I wanted to include a little video in this, but we'll probably add it as like a bonus. We're pouring tea from like 4 feet up in the air, and we're pretty awesome at it if I do say so myself. Oh, we should talk about the teacups that they use. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the teacups they use, I collect shot glasses, so for me, they just look like kind of like a double shot. And they're glass, so and you're pouring like hot tea that has been boiled in them, so you do have to be careful with your fingers, or maybe my fingers are too sensitive. I haven't done enough hard work in my life or something. But so in order to not burn my fingers, I found myself waiting to drink the tea for it to cool down. And so by the time that happened, the tea has steeped for too long and it becomes bitter and it's not as tasty. So in order to combat that, the Gone Girl and I had this brilliant idea to just use regular American coffee cups that are, you know, the regular size. So we could pour all the tea we wanted into one cup and drink it without burning our fingers. Rashid had a nice laugh at us about that.
I think at first we did it almost jokingly. We said to him, we need American size coffee cups, and then just continued to bring that upstairs every night for us. Hi, Rashid, if you see this later, hi, we miss you. What else? Oh, so one downside to being in Marrakesh is that there are a lot of animals used for tourists' entertainment purposes. So we saw snakes, monkeys, horses, camels. Anything else?
Donkeys, but those were used more for work than I think for entertainment.
Yeah, so I think it's one thing when you're going to a place and the locals are using animals to survive and run their business, and they're doing it in a way that's humane for both the animal and everyone involved. But a lot of places will have animals just for the tourist amusement sake. So me, as someone who lives in the US and is traveling to Morocco, I don't need to go do a camel ride. There's no reason that's a necessity for me. Even if I go into the desert, I can do a 4x4 instead of sitting on a camel that's being used just for these purposes. Most of the time, when you see that happening, the animal is not well taken care of and they're being overworked, and it's just a really sad situation. So we try to be super conscious about that, and generally the rule of thumb is to avoid any type of animal excursion or anything like that unless you've done your research and you're 100% confident that it's humane for that animal to do. We also saw goats in a tree on one of our tours, and later found out that they actually put the goats up there just for the tourists, even though that's something they naturally did in the past. They put the goats up there and they tie them to the trees so that tourists will come take pictures, and then the men that have done this, they will get a tip from the tourists that don't know what's happening. So always think twice about contributing money or anything to any type of animal entertainment thing, because it's going to be bad, especially if you have not looked it up beforehand. So I don't think we did anything that involved animals at all while we were there, did we?
No, we didn't. We tried to avoid that like the plague. Before we were aware, we did take pictures of the goat tree, and because we didn't know on our trip to Essaouira that, you know, we would be stopping at a place to take pictures of goats and trees. But otherwise, that walking through the Medina, we did, you know, try to avoid the people who had their monkeys and the snake charmers. But I think that's part of the appeal for some people, where when they're visiting other countries, is they just, you know, they find out, you know, hey, camel rides in the desert, that's one thing that I absolutely have to do when I visit, you know, a country where I'm going to be walking through the desert. Or, you know, I'm visiting Middle Eastern or Arabic country, like I want to see a snake charmer, and they don't necessarily do the research to find out, to make sure that the animals are being taken care of the way they deserve to be.
Yeah, or people do recognize it because someone's told them, and they just become blinded by what they want, so they don't necessarily care. They choose to stay ignorant about it just to get what they want out of it. So I really think it's worth always considering the other side of things. Just, you might want to do this and it might be something that you've been dreaming to do, but is it really the ethical thing to do, you know? Is there a way to do it? Is there maybe a company that will do it that has some sort of conservation effort or some positive thing for the community and the animals? There's usually ways around it if it's something that you absolutely have to do. But generally, sitting on animals anytime where you're like riding a camel or something, it's probably not going to be good. There's no reason you need to do that. You can go to a sanctuary and pet camels, but you don't need to be riding them. I feel really strongly about that. I'm trying to move through this quickly so we don't end up with 40 minutes. So I want to move on to things that we would have done differently or that we would do next time we go. Do you have anything on your list, Natalie?
There definitely will be a next time in Morocco for me. I absolutely love Morocco, and I fell in love with it as soon as I, you know, visited the first time. I definitely do want to visit the desert in Morocco. I've seen the mountains, I've seen the cities, I've seen the beach. I definitely want to go, and I want to see the desert. There will be no camel rides involved for me. And I'm not much of a camper, so I'm not sure how that's going to work for me either. But it's something I definitely want to scratch off my bucket list. And there are some good excursions out to the desert. So that's definitely top of my list next time I visit.
I'd like to go to the desert too, and I would want to go to the Blue City and some of the other cities like Fez just to go see more of Morocco. We spent most of our time in Marrakesh, which was awesome, but I definitely would want to venture out and see some more of it. And then last, I just want to talk about what the highlight was of our trip. We talked a little bit about this before we went live. I'm conflicted because I loved so much about it, but I think ultimately the hammam experience was the most memorable because I was kind of terrified of it beforehand. We weren't sure if we were going to do it, and then it ended up being amazing. So I just loved it.
The hammam was definitely at the top of my highlights list too. We were both pretty anxious beforehand, but once we got there, like it was so easy, you know, and I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting like, I honestly thought that during the middle of the hammam, I might have to like stop the person doing it just because I was going to be uncomfortable, but I wasn't at all. I was like, I'm going to lay down. You do whatever you need to do because this is great.
Yeah, I could go for a hammam right now. You're like, yes, I would instantly go to do that. The cooking class was also really awesome. I think that the thing that made that really memorable is that the actual class is located right by the market in the Medina. So we actually had forgotten one of the ingredients, and you literally just walk out the door and you can go get fresh whatever herbs you want, anything. It's right there within a 30-second walk.
I really enjoyed the cooking class too, and I enjoyed working with the ladies, the cooks who are actual like Moroccan ladies, and you know they make these meals for their families all the time, and just like you know chopping up the vegetables and like cooking the zalouk over the in the tagine. The one guy, the Dutch guy who was there, I thought he was a bit of a jerk, but he definitely didn't ruin the experience for me.
Yeah, we did get to talk a little bit to both the Dutch man and the other two people in the group who, it was a gay couple, about being gay and traveling to Morocco, which was insightful. So apparently there's been people arrested over being publicly gay tourists there, so just be cautious for that. But then I think, was his name Patrick, the guy who did our class? I think so.
I think so. I'm not 100%. I wrote it down somewhere.
Well, he was telling us that he's gay as well, and he was looking up on Grindr, the app, and apparently there's just tons of people in Marrakesh on that app, even though technically it's not something that's allowed there. It's something that happens all the time. So it seemed like the gay couple that was with us, they were pretty comfortable going through the Medina and stuff, but you can't really publicly show any sort of affection from what I've gathered. So that's kind of interesting, and it opened up my eyes a lot to what people face if they're traveling, you know, as a gay couple. That's not something I ever have to be exposed to or deal with, but it's a really interesting thing and definitely something to watch out for because not every country is as, you know, tolerant as the United States with that. Yeah, anything else?
Not that I can think of. I'm a big proponent of visiting Morocco. I think it's something everyone should do at least once. You know, the Moroccan people that I've spoken with and spent time with, they've just been some of the sweetest people I've ever met, and so nice. A shout out again to Rashid, who is the best ever. He, you know, spent so much time with us. He took us to his village up in the Berber villages and hiking in the Atlas Mountains. And it was a whole day. It was his day off. And he was just so nice and so kind about it. And he helped us learn how to make tea.
Yeah, we're a handful. It's not like we're easy to deal with. We're always asking for directions and just, yeah.
He would, you know, if we were out late, he would send me a message like, "Are you guys okay? You're not lost, are you?" I'm like, "We're fine, I think." So he's just the greatest person, and I cannot say enough positive things about him.
I 100% agree, and we miss you a lot, Rashid. We will be back, and we will definitely be staying with you in your great Riyadh. That's the word I'm looking for again, because that was just wonderful. Yeah, so I guess that kind of wraps it up for Morocco. We are currently trying to figure out where we will go to next year for Bestie Trip 2016. 17, 18, whatever year we're going to be in when we do that. So we're still figuring it out. Suggestions if you guys have any. I'm going to be doing some more how-to videos in the next few weeks. So if you guys want to hear about any specific topics covered, just leave it in the comments below and I will consider that. Yeah, but other than that, I guess we will see you guys next week. Natalie, any last words?
Thanks for watching. You might not see me next week, but whatever the Gone Girl has planned, I'm sure it'll be amazing and fun to watch. And I'm excited to see it.
Well, thank you for doing this recap, Noodles, and we will see everyone next week on Tuesday. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.